Welcome to We and Lewis, a podcast dedicated to celebrating the remarkable, creative, and energetic people who live in Lewis and are helping our community forge a collective soul as appealing as it is unique. These are their stories in their words. They are the We and Lewis. I'm your host, Kevin McGinnis. Today we're offering something a little different. We wanted to share several not-released stories from 4 of our previous guests. Sadly, because of time, we had to leave these on the editing room floor. They include Bay and River pilot Captain Stuart Griffin talking about smuggling and one of the most challenging areas to navigate. Megan Kee, the owner of Bramble and Brine and 3 other hit local restaurants, describes her love affair with Disney and her ideas for their restaurant, Coral Reef. World record-holding spear fisherman Richard Martin shares what happened when he was asked to model a spacesuit in the U.S. Senate, and how he handled an astronaut who forgot that flying to the moon is a team sport. And Matt DiSabatino, who created Striper Bites and is part owner of Kindle and Half Full, and a serial supporter of the show, shares what he would serve if he invited you for dinner at his house. Also, as a final treat, we've included more of the music the Williams brothers wrote exclusively for this show. You can hear them perform in multiple local restaurants and concerts throughout the year. If you can, you should take in one of their shows now before you have to pay for the privilege. Today's episode is brought to you by us, Steve Esfandieri, our brilliant sound engineer, and me. The funds we collect from our sponsors help defray some of the costs of producing and airing every episode and saying thank you to our guests. We cover the rest, but we're happy to do so because we get the chance to meet and get to know some amazing and remarkable people. One more thing. If you'd like to sponsor an episode on behalf of a local organization, please send us a note at info@weandlewis.com. This approach has enabled us to devote sponsor time to Historic Lewis and the Blue Zone Project, among others. But remember, there's still one caveat. No politics, no politicians. Lord knows they already have enough outlets, especially now. Let's start with Stuart. The Pilots Association has been, very much a part of Lewis life. They've been a real institution here. But if you go back to piloting before the association, you mentioned earlier, it was very, very competitive. Also, this area had a proud tradition, not only of shipping, but smuggling and a little pirating. And apparently, there's still some, it's a seaport. There are things coming in to this country that shouldn't be. And I noticed in 2019, there was a ship that was caught outside of Philadelphia. I believe it was loaded with 20 tons of cocaine. I don't even understand how that's possible, but that was what the press report was. So for a pilot, when you come on board and you go out and is there a different sense in a ship like that? Or what do you do? What's your role? Is you get the ship out of the, to port and get it out of the channel. But are you then try to get off the ship as quickly as possible?
Well, that case, there's been that was the MSC Guyan that had that massive cocaine smuggling bust in Philly a few years ago. I mean, I've had plenty of ships over the years that it has later turned up that they were smuggling drugs, either intentionally or unbeknownst to them, because it's amazing the extent to which these I guess cartels will go. But I mean, there was a time years ago when we had these regular caller fruit ships that docked at Pier 82 or 84 in South Philly, and they ran to Columbia every week. So it was a 2-week turnaround, and the company had more than one ship on the service. So you had a weekly ship from this company. So these ships were on liner service, and they would come here and like the coasties and the customs and immigration folks would even send divers down because they would attach magnetic pods. They found a void space that the cartels had welded, they had cut with a cutting torch underwater when it was in South America into the rudder, found a void space, and they would pack it with drugs and weld it shut and ship it to Philly that way. And they got, I guess, these. So we're not law enforcement, luckily, that we focus on safe navigation. We collaborate, of course, and do what we can to work with the authorities, and they work with us, because God forbid one of us should like in the case of the MSC Guyan, our pilot had to board that ship and had no idea what he was walking into that day. And so, we support them. If they have intel, they board with us sometimes. Sometimes they do a forced boarding when we go to board here in Lewis. It's not that frequent that a Coast Guard boarding team goes with you, but, in the years, it ebbs and flows. In the years after 9/11, we were a lot more concerned about threats, and the Coast Guard's matrix was a lot more aggressive at the time, and so there would be armed boarding teams sometimes that would go with you, depending on their perceived threat. In the case of the Guyan, as it later turned out, they had intel. So like they actually, when the pilot who went to board that ship that day, when it first came in from sea, he didn't know, but he had an armed boarding team with him, and they were a very enthusiastic armed boarding team. So sometimes, they have different protocols. When there's a real perceived threat, the coasties go up the ladder first, and they'll go up with guns drawn. And they start, and it's a very aggressive, assertive, take control, shouting at the crew, absolute domain control type situation. Other times it's a lot more laid back. We're here for an inspection. It's more courteous. But in that case, they had intel, they boarded, they started searching. They had the pilot anchor the ship right here at the breakwater. It wasn't going to go anywhere. They had him drop the hook right off the breakwater, and they started searching the ship and looking it over, and they started checking cabins. And if memory serves, I think they were using these wipes that sometimes you get wiped. Sometimes they'll wipe your bag, and when you're going through airport security, I guess they were swabbing the hands and surfaces in the crew cabins, and they found cocaine residue, and that was it. They were off to the races, and they then took the ship to the dock in Philly, and they took that thing apart. They took every single, and that was a very large, that was a UL CV, an ultra-large container vessel. They took every single container off of it, searched every single one, looked in every inch of that ship, and many of those folks of the crew were it was a whole conspiracy, and they were loading that cocaine from fast boats while the ship was underway off the west coast of South America. Incredible operation, and there's been great stories written about it that kind of tell about the whole process. And yeah, they ultimately arrested several of the crew members, and they're still in jail in Philadelphia. So it happens. I had a boarding one time where the captain and a couple other guys were bringing in steroids. I think I heard later, because when you arrive at the dock and they put the gangway down, usually there's customs and immigration people there, and it's a couple men in uniform. They've got a sidearm, but it's very low key. But when you drop the gangway and there are 25 cars with lights flashing, dogs lined up, boarding teams, flak jackets, you get the picture pretty quickly.
Well, that must be an interesting goodbye for the crew, for you, for the pilot.
Yeah,
like, good to see you. I'm off.
It's not a good day for them when that happens.
Oh. Is there one part of the river or the bay that's the real challenge for you? Or does it change? In other words, for a lot of people, if you take a trip, there's one area that's sort of difficult to get through, and once you get there, you're feeling better.
Yeah. I mean, there certainly are a couple turns that are bigger turns, and by just the sort of geographic and bathymetric construct there, it's a little more. It requires even a tad more focus than you would bring to the trip, the other parts of the trip. I mean, but also, these are areas that are high traffic areas. They're areas of confluence, like, off the entrance to the C&D Canal. It's a confluence area. You've got traffic that comes and goes so you've got the inbound and outbound main shipping channel. You've got vessels coming in and out of the C&D Canal. You have vessels coming in and out of the small port of Salem, New Jersey on the east side of the river. You have the Delaware City refinery off a branch channel that comes in there. So it's a confluence of all this traffic. And then, especially this time of year, for the summer season, you add in the snowbirds who are moving north and south with their little pleasure boats, and they're driving by their chart plotter, not looking out the window. And you're coming to that turn, meeting traffic. Maybe a tug and barge is going to be coming out of the canal, and you're trying to coordinate the traffic, be in the right place at the right time. And then you add in a line of 3 40-foot carvers with retirees in them who are not looking over their shoulder, and they're right in the middle of the channel because they're driving on their chart plotter, and they don't really know where they are. And places like that can be really stressful sometimes.
We're going to head back to land now to the restaurant Bramble and Brine. Megan Kee, the founder of the restaurant and 3 other unforgettable dining experiences in the area, opens up about her ideas for a restaurant overhaul at Disney World and a project she calls Moon Coins that's still in development. When did your love of Disney begin? Because I believe you have a life pass.
Well, that was misquoted, but
okay.
It technically is a life pass because I'll continually renew it and renew it and renew it. So it's not necessarily correct. So it's just an annual pass. I wish maybe Disney will hear this one day when I become something even bigger and they'll say, Megan Kee gets the first life pass ever to be issued by Walt Disney World. I have actually reached out to Disney on a corporate level. So to be very clear, not for the pass, but because they see so many concepts that they have within Disney World that aren't doing what they should be doing. Specifically Disney World, if you ever listen, the one with the big aquarium. I know every name of every restaurant, but I can't think of that one because it's so underserviced. The Coral. Epcot. Yeah, the one in Epcot. Under the Coral. I can't remember. The one with the aquarium, because it should be a Little Mermaid themed restaurant. And it should have the big scallop shell booth seating, and they should have it should be like when Winnie the Pooh comes out in Crystal Palace, it should have Sebastian, and they should be playing under the sea with the aquarium. Coral Reef. And it should it should just be, now that vegetarian is a thing, it should be land centric, but also cater to everyone in a light way. I have a whole concept, Disney World, and I think you would be really thrilled to hear it. I have it in my head. I'm watching Sebastian sing and beat the drum in my mind right now. But Disney World came to be from my mom. When my grandmother passed away, my mom started to take my brother and I to Disney World often. It would not be a strange thing for my mom to call me in Boston and say, hop on a plane and meet me in Florida for a couple days. When things were sad, when things were good, when we just needed to touch in with each other, we would go to Disney World. And all of our family would sort of convene for bigger trips, but mainly around my mom. My mom takes my brother, my mom takes me, and now I take my mom. But my grandmother, it started when Disney World first opened here in Florida. My grandfather said, no, you're not taking the kids. And my grandmother sold a piece of jewelry and to the Steins and said, I'm taking the kids I don't need your permission. Although she had lots of her own finances back then, the husband really was in charge. And so she sold an emerald tennis bracelet and took my mom and my aunt to Disney World for the opening. And so when my grandmother passed, I think that was a very cherished memory, obviously, for my mom. So now that's how it started to be, my mom bringing us from that.
And also, if you look at the Megan Collective online, you'll see reference to Moon Coin.
Yeah.
But there's nothing more about it on the site. What is Moon Coin?
Moon Coins. Okay. Moon Coins is the coffee flour ice cream donut shop that I want to open for my mother. My mom came up with the name Moon Coins, and one day I'll share more publicly what it means. But it was supposed to be in the old former bakery at the Buttery. Now that we're doing all-day service, I'm trying to find a way to navigate the prep of being open from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day this summer, while also opening Moon Coins. So hopefully Moon Coins will happen in that space still this year. I have been looking for other freestanding locations because the concept, as you can see, how I build on things, the concept has already outgrown that space and it hasn't even opened yet. So that's a bit of a problem. And my staff's like, where do you think you're going to do all these things? I said, it's going to be like the clown car. We'll just figure it out, which isn't fair to them. But Moon Coins will happen somewhere this summer. I was actually hopefully going to put it in the Swannondale Club that recently sold. And I tried my best, but I just didn't have enough money.
In our next clip, Richard Martin talks about his first and I believe last experience as a male model, followed by how he handled someone who forgot that there may be an I in pilot, but there isn't one in astronaut. Tell us about the time you took the spacesuit to the United States Senate and had to share a dressing room with some others.
Well, I think it was the American News Women's Club or something. They wanted to put a show on at the New Senate Office Building. It was, at that time, it was called the New Senate Office Building. Probably today, it's just called the Office.
It's
Senate.
the hard office.
It's
It's the
yeah,
hard.
yeah, but it was because it was new. It was a new Office Senate building. So ILC was asked to come over there and have me put on a spacesuit demonstration with Mrs. Agnew, Spiro Agnew's wife. He was vice president. I forget under whom, but
Nixon.
Nixon? Is it Nixon? Yeah. Anyway, so they asked me to put on a demonstration. And there's photos of the book of Mrs. Agnew putting a boot on my spacesuit and stuff like that. But the dressing area, the room where you change clothes was in a hallway behind the Senate floor, which was, there was this a bench-type table and some fold-up chairs, and there was two ladies there. One's a senator's wife and her daughter, and they were going to model some clothing made out of fabric that was used in spacesuits, just as a sideshow thing. We had to undress in this room, the girls and myself. And I told the girls, I said, I'm very sorry, I have to undress the spacesuit. I have changed clothes. They said, we do too. So they took their clothes off, and they got little bikini bras on, little panties, little bikini pants on. And nice shape, very nice shape. I mean, hot. And I've got to get in a spacesuit. You sure you want me to tell this story? so I had to get in a spacesuit. So I got my legs in there, and I'm trying to pull the rest of it up over my thighs and up to my waist. And I looked at the girls, and I said, ladies, I said, you were both very attractive, and both were very scantily clad. I said, you're beautiful. I said, I'm having a little problem pulling this spacesuit up, if you know what I mean. And they laughed and laughed and laughed. And they said, we understand, we'll be out of here on second. as soon as they left, I was able to get the spacesuit up.
Astronauts, I assume, are very alpha male oriented in who they are. Did you ever have some issues with one or two of the astronauts, and did the technicians sort of find a way to get things straightened out? Yes.
Just one. But all the astronauts are just regular people. I mean, we had Ted Freeman here from the Freeman Highway. He was an astronaut, and I never met him. But a guy's a guy, you know, and all have different personalities. But I don't know how many astronauts that I've gotten into spacesuits, probably 12, 15, something like that. But we had one guy that came to ILC in Dover, and right away he just had a demeanor where he's bitching about everything. You know, the room's not very clean. Everything's cold. It's cold. It's this. It's that. It's this. It's that. And he was just bitching and bitching and bitching. We put the suit on him, and he said, "Oh, it hurts here. It hurts there. It does." He just habitual complainer. So we said, we're going to fix his butt. So we got to calm him down. So we broke for lunch. He was only in the suit like half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. And he said, I like to break for lunch. And we said, fine. Now we got a guy, when you're in a spacesuit, you got a couple guys operating a paddle, which sucks room air in and pushes it. It's like a compressor. It puts it into the suit at the pressure that you want to operate the suit at, 0.75 pounds per square inch or whatever.
But it's the whole suit, so it's all interconnected.
With the
air
helmet
that you're pushing in circulates.
Yeah, and he's got a helmet on. He can't do it. And an astronaut is at our command while he's in the suit. He can't do it. He can't get out himself even. He can't take it off himself. He has to have assistance to get it off. You have to bring the pressure down. You got to take the helmet off. The wrist disconnects. Everything. Typically, you can't do it. I could do it by myself, but typically you can't. And so he was bitching so much. Anyway, we broke for lunch. He said, "We're going to break for lunch." So the guys and I were conjuring up a way of handling this. So we went to Pappy's Pizza for lunch, and we had chili and beer and pizza. And we get back to the room and get him back in the suit. Well, this panel that sucks the air in to send it to the suit has an intake in a panel wall that's just about 4 feet high, maybe 3-4 feet high. And we said, let's just go over there and
take some pressure off your stomach.
That's a good. He's farting the suit. So we just back over there, pass a little gas into the inlet, and he just doesn't know where this is coming from. Yeah. And he's bitching and said, well, I don't know, it's a regular room air. I don't know, it's regular room air. You just have to deal with it. So, but he finally calmed down, and I think he realized what was going on. He calmed down. He never said another word. So, he didn't bitch to management or anything.
Our last clip is with Matt DiSabatino, the first friend of the podcast. We asked if, by some miracle, he was cooking dinner for us at his home, what would be on the menu. It's unbelievable. If you were cooking dinner at your house, I mean, you've done all of this with restaurants and you've made food. What's your favorite dish? If you were cooking, what would we expect you to make for us? And that's not just a subtle hint.
That's a good one. So I love to cook, I don't, my background in the restaurants has always been front of the house. I was always, a server and worked my way up to a manager and more of the maitre d' type. But obviously the attraction and getting involved in the restaurants is the food. I was fortunate to have grandmothers on both sides and my mom, who still is an amazing cook. There's a lot of home cooking in my life, which kind of gets you on this path, obviously. So I think the point that I was trying to make there was I don't cook in the restaurants, but when cooking at home is a big part of our family life. And when I do, so it's going to be in the summer outside with the grill going. I recently figured out we have a close friend here in town who's an amazing metal crafter welder, and he took this basically grate that I gave him because I wanted to cook over an open fire, and he was able to set it up so that I could cook over an outdoor wooden fire. So maybe doing like fresh vegetables, some wings, and then having like some kind of seafood saute thing going on the other grill, and eventually it becomes like a saute that we could even play around with some tacos and stuff like that. We like to eat sort of like family style, where it's not, everybody sits down at the same time with a full plate, more of like sort of a festive kind of take a little here, take a little there, and sort of kind of have this ongoing type of cocktail party kind of dinner thing. And that really kind of fits that and then when you have people over too, it makes it easy to cook like that as well. So fish and shrimp, maybe a little protein on the side, and then a lot of vegetables. My wife Allie's a vegetarian, so we always got big vegetables and stuff like that going on.
Fine. It was a cheesy ploy by Steve and me to get invited to Matt's for dinner, which, mind you, hasn't worked yet, but we're going to keep on trying. But come on, after listening to that description, can you blame us? What an incredible dining experience that would be. Maybe even a new restaurant concept or a special sometime at Kindle or Half Full. It would be an instant hit. We hope you enjoyed this edition. Thanks again for listening, for sticking with us as we learn about the do's and don'ts of podcasting. Thank you for your kind words and your continued encouragement. Steve and I have had a blast doing this, and it's fun to know others are enjoying the episodes as well. And a special thanks to our guests, Stuart, Megan, Richard, and Matt. Without them, Steve and I would just be sitting on a porch, sipping an adult beverage and telling the same damn stories over and over and over. We'll return to our regular programming format in our next episode. Till next time, this has been We and Lewis, the podcast.